Welcome to Mediation Practice Group Skills Session. In this video, we are going to be focusing on effective communication skills, and we're going to use an acronym that should be easy to remember, PROSPER. I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. I am recording this video from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional land gathering place, meeting ground, and traveling route for Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, the Saulteaux, the Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux nations. If you're new here, you may not be familiar with the acronym PROSPER in this context of communication skills. So I'll start by just running through what each of the letters means in this acronym. The first P, and it really doesn't matter what order, it's however best you can remember it, but we're talking about the use of the skill paraphrasing. R is for reflecting what specifically? It's really reflecting feelings. We're going to talk about each of these skills individually in this video. O is for open-ended questioning. S for summarizing. The other P is probing questions. E for empathy and learning how to empathize with our clients in a way that does not give rise to some appearance of bias, that we are aligned with the person who we are empathizing with. And then finally, we have another R in PROSPER, and that is the use of the skill of reframing. Let's start with talking a little bit about the skill of the paraphrase. So what you're doing in using this skill is you're kind of checking in with the person that you are paraphrasing, and to make sure that you have understood what the meaning was behind what they had to say. Now, you're not changing the meaning in some way, but you're just restating it in a way to maintain what the original meaning was. You want to use your own words though, and it doesn't have to be so technical that you're not repeating any of the words that the speaker first used, but it's not just parroting back what they've said. It's taking what they've said and just kind of thinking about what it means to you by reference to your own words. And that's the way you can check and confirm the understanding of what was originally said, and whether you have interpreted that properly. You want to be concise. That if you paraphrase too long, you might actually kind of lose sight of what it is that you're trying to communicate. Now let's take a stab at practicing this skill. If you hear this phrase, every time I come to work, everything is a mess, and she never helps me with anything. Take a stab at paraphrasing that sentence. Here's another example. When we worked on this project, he was always scrolling on his phone. He didn't contribute at all, but he got all the credit. Now, with each example or phrase throughout this video, I encourage you to pause the video, take a stab at a paraphrase, or as we continue, whatever the skill is that we're practicing on that particular slide, and so that you can have a chance to test yourself to see whether you feel comfortable that you have fully understood how to use this skill set. Let's try another. We were going to meet at the movie theater at 8. At 7:45, they texted me saying they weren't going to make it. I already bought the tickets, so I was out $50 and I ended up watching the movie by myself. Now, this one's a little bit longer. Take a stab at a paraphrase. Remember, you're trying to be concise. You don't want it to be too long, but it's important to be maintaining the original meaning using your own words because you are confirming understanding. The skill set of reflecting feelings. You want to look not just for, and by looking, I mean, you don't want to just listen to what they're saying and what words they're using as feeling words, because sometimes people say things without using a feeling word, but you also want to be paying attention to those nonverbal cues as well. So the verbal and nonverbal cues, you're validating the emotion that often you're just hunching at, and you're doing it without judgment. So, for example, if somebody's feeling angry about something, that maybe in your inside voice you're thinking, I don't know if it's worth being angry about that. That's not your role. Your role is not to assess and judge and give feedback as to whether or not the emotion is appropriate in the context. Instead, you are simply validating by recognizing. So you're not saying that, like, in this context, validate doesn't mean that you're endorsing the use or that experience of the emotion. Remember, people's emotions are coming from somewhere for themselves. It isn't something that they are reaching out and picking and saying, oh, I'm going to choose this emotion. So by validating, we are telling the client, we're showing the client that we're tracking that there is an emotion that they are experiencing, and we are doing that in a very neutral way. You are demonstrating then that you understand, or you see, you acknowledge those feelings, and it's not just what the facts are, it's the fact that the facts can create an emotional response, and that's the part that we're naming for our mediation clients. Now, here's another opportunity to practice. Practice reflecting the feelings in each of these statements. Every time I come to work, everything is a mess, and she never helps me with anything. Now, if you're having a moment of deja vu, yes, these phrases throughout our video, we're going to continue to use the same examples, but you're going to engage different types of skills, these different communication skills as identified in the acronym PROSPER. So the second sentence here for you to try reflecting the feelings back. When we worked on this project, he was always scrolling on his phone. He didn't contribute at all, but he got all the credit. Next, we were going to meet at the movie theater at 8. At 7:45, they texted me saying they weren't going to make it. I already bought the tickets. So I was out $50 and I ended up watching the movie by myself. Pause the video, take a stab at practicing how to reflect feelings in each of these examples. Open-ended questions. Restructure a question by adding one of these words, either how or what or why. A closed-ended question is one where you're seeking just a yes or no answer, basically, or almost, it doesn't necessarily have to be yes or no, it might just be one word, and that's very closed. But the answers to how, what, or why are generally more expansive, and this is a way to engage people and really try to get under the surface of what is going on. You're seeking the information for trying to gain some insight, context, and understanding. But remember, it's not for your own benefit. This is for the benefit of the mediation client, for the mediation group, whether it's two people that you're helping through mediation, work through their conflict, or a multi-party mediation. This is a way in which you can help pull out some of the information that will help achieve that greater understanding, which is one of the objectives of the mediation process. Another way you can draw out information that is maybe less of a question, but is an example of an open-ended engagement, where you invite them to describe something or to tell you more about whatever it is that they have already spoken to. You're going deeper. This is, if you can visualize that, often, in conflict training, conflict engagement or mediation training, there's the use of an iceberg analogy. It says when people are in conflict and they come to us, we see the tip of the iceberg, what the problem is. But the really important stuff is under the surface. And so we're diving under the surface here, where we are engaging, quite frankly, all of these skills, but in particular, the open-ended questions. In a bit, we're going to talk about probing questions as well, but we're trying to get under the surface. And how can we do that? Well, it's engaging using these open-ended types of questions or phrases that will go beyond a simple yes or no. Let's practice this. You're going to restructure these questions to be open-ended. So in reference to that earlier comment in our hypothetical here, or role plays about the mess, a closed question that you might ask that person would be, well, do you know why she didn't help with the mess? Well, what's the answer? The person's either going to say yes or they're going to say no. Now, some people might expand further. They might say, yes, I know why, and then go ahead and start to tell you. But if you can ask an open-ended question or respond with some type of a phrase that invites them to tell you more, then you're not leaving it just up to chance that they'll just say yes or no to your closed-ended question. So take a stab at changing up this question a bit to be more open-ended. Here's the second example, and this is with respect to the person who's just scrolling on their phone instead of paying attention in the meeting. Was he looking at something important on his phone? Again, the person might say yes or no, or I don't know, which is probably more likely unless they were peeking over their shoulder. Next, did they say why they couldn't come to the movies, or they couldn't make it to the movies? And of course, this is in reference to the unfortunate circumstance there where somebody was waiting, got their last minute notification that their party wasn't joining, and now they are going to the movies by themselves. So then a closed question is, well, did they tell you basically? Did they say why they couldn't make it to the movies? Take a stab at rewording that to be open-ended. Okay, let's summarize what we've been talking about here in terms of the use of these kinds of communication skills. What are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to clarify main points, condense what's being talked about while maintaining meaning, focus and shorten, and think of a general overview, especially when we are engaging in a summary or paraphrase. As we continue to work through the acronym PROSPER, let's now take a look at that second P, which stands for probe. When we are using probing techniques in conversation, in a mediation, what we're really trying to do is to get as deep into the issue as possible. Sometimes somebody might give you a short answer and you feel like, I just sense that there's more to this. Well, you could rephrase the question and try to open the dialogue further. Also pay attention to body language. Sometimes somebody might give you a short answer and then a bit of a cue, like there's more to ask about. They bite their lip, or they kind of look away, or they look down. And so if you are building some rapport with your mediation clients and building some safety and trust, then they're going to open up, and that will help you in your role of trying to seek clarity and understanding. Remember, it's not for your own clarity and understanding, but it's to help the participants in the mediation. Let's do another round of practicing. Here is the question that you asked in this a little role play here. When the office is messy, how would you like her to help? That's probing for some more information and doing it in an open-ended way. An answer that you receive could be, I want her to clean, but that doesn't necessarily give you the full picture. So you might have another question that you would build upon to probe deeper. Why don't you pause the video now so you can give that a try? The E in prosper is for empathize. While you are demonstrating empathy, you are working towards building trust. It's a way to help facilitate understanding between the parties and really some baby steps towards rebuilding relationships. The more as a mediator you can sprinkle some demonstrations of empathy into the process, the better able you are to model for your mediation clients how they could demonstrate empathy for each other. And this will then move people from defensiveness towards collaboration. Let's practice some demonstrations of empathy. So here would be a statement that you might hear from somebody in that first example of the person who is not pulling their weight in cleaning the office. And so perhaps your client might say, I hate that she doesn't help me clean the office. See if you could take a practice at hunching at what emotion or unmet need might be going on for the person who says that, and demonstrate your empathy towards them for that problem that they're experiencing. The second scenario here, I don't know how this is exactly connected to the scrolling scenario, but nonetheless, perhaps the gentleman who was scrolling in the meeting was also not paying attention and then afterwards tried to take credit for what was going on. But here's the statement: men always take the credit even when they don't contribute. I'm not saying that we believe that. This is a statement from somebody who is in your pretend mediation here, and you need to demonstrate some empathy for them. So what might you say, even if you don't necessarily agree with the statement? How about this one? This is where the person was stood up at the movie theater. I was looking forward to watching the movie with them, and it was so annoying that they ditched me last minute. They didn't even offer to pay me back. What might you say to this person when they share that information with you and you want to demonstrate empathy towards them? The last letter in our acronym PROSPER that we're going to look at is the second R, and that is the reframe. A reframe is about helping people shift their perspective, moving from positions to, of course, interests and a forward-thinking mindset. It's an opportunity to check assumptions, and in the reframe, we're really wanting to neutralize the strong language, and that's going to help in the shifting. We're shifting from not just positions to interests, but from being problem focused to being goal focused. Once again, let's practice. Next time, practicing reframing. Somebody says, she's lazy and she needs to help me clean the messes at the office. What might you say that reframes this statement by taking a hunch at an underlying interest or need, shifting from focusing on the problem to thinking about a forward outcome that would meet that unmet need that you're hunching at, and also neutralizing the strong language. The second practice sentence: he needs to admit he barely helped with the project. How might you reframe that statement? And finally, I'm never going out with them again, and they need to pay me back. This is, of course, our movie scenario. Pause the video, take a stab at reframing each of these sentences. In summary, PROSPER is an acronym that we hope will help you remember some of the communication skills and techniques that can be very helpful in mediation. Each letter is standing for a different technique, and you might use all of these techniques in a mediation, but you might not necessarily. So these are just tools to have in your toolbox. You could combine or use multiple techniques depending not just on your clients, but also what it is that they are mediating and perhaps where they are in the process. If they are they've been to multiple meetings and they're starting to understand how to communicate with each other, you might not even as a mediator be needing to model that many communication skills anymore or be too involved because they've started to have conversations on their own. But at the very beginning, they might actually not even know how to begin a conversation. So you will tap into your toolbox and use one or more of these skills. Not only might it change it depending on where they are in the mediation, but your clients themselves could come in with different skill sets. You might have some very talented communicators, but others are going to need some greater assistance in modeling from you. And finally, we have a few resources here that you can check out to learn more about communication skills. And we encourage you to click on these links. And if you have taken the National Introduction to Mediation course offered by ADRIC, there's a manual that has a whole section on PROSPER. If you have some curiosity about these communication techniques and you would like some feedback on your exercises, please reach out to us because we would love to hear how you've used these communication techniques and provide you with some feedback. And of course, remember, we at the Academy have all sorts of other types of training available to you as well. If you wish to be a specialist in being able to be a family mediator, for example, or you just want to learn some more conflict resolution skills, reach out to our Academy administrator, visit our website at commonsensemediation.ca, and we look forward to seeing you, having you here participate either at a mediation practice group live or through interacting with our videos.